What's going on, guys? This is Sean from Lineup Logic Daily Fantasy Podcast. I'm bringing you some advanced research methods for MLB DFS. We are going to go ahead and look at the Friday slate for July 17th, or excuse me, July 14th. Here, the next slate upcoming after the All-Star break. I'm going to show you guys some research methods for trying to determine pitchers that you may want to use in your GPP lineups. Um, Obviously, we just went through cash game pitchers for this slate, and we determined that Jake DeGrom is not only the pitcher with the most strikeout upside, but he also has an elite matchup going up against the Rockies in that situation. And we're going to take a very similar process towards GPP pitchers as we did towards cash game pitchers. We're just looking for talent. When we're looking for a GPP pitcher, however, we're looking for talent, but we're also looking for some possibly overlooked upside by the field, things that the public may not notice, things that the public may not consider at a depressed price. So getting extra value out of a pitcher. Because obviously in a tournament, you not only want upside from your pitcher, but you also want upside from your bats, which very often means that you may have to pay for more potent offenses. So in this case, we've got to do a little bit of a deeper dive on some of the names that we see on this list. Obviously, when you go over to the advanced data here in Fangraphs, and remember, the first step in doing any of your pitcher research is getting everything in the same place. So when we go to fangraphs.com, we're going to go over to the scores tab. We're going to drop down to probable pitchers. And we're going to make sure that we get all the probable pitchers for that day's slate. And what you can do is every day when you're researching this, or excuse me, when you're researching a slate, you can on that day see the probable pitchers. I've created a custom player list that represents the pitchers for Friday, but this is our pitcher slate for Friday for the most part, except for those who have not been announced. Okay, the other place that you can look is Derek Farnsworth's first look. Derek Farnsworth does a really, really nice job on Roto Grinders of getting all this information in one place. And this is the first look. This is a previous one from I believe Saturday's slate. But he gets you the Vegas lines. He gets you the starting pitcher data here, their price, K rate of their opponent, whether or not they're favored, their strikeout rate, their walk rate, their swinging strike rate, all that stuff is absolutely necessary. And then he'll give you the information about the opposing offenses here and what they're capable of against these pitchers. So this is a great place to use as well if you feel more comfortable with this tool or you're already familiar with it. But let's go over to Fangraphs. And the reason that I use Fangraphs is because it allows me to dive deeper on a pitcher and figure out some stuff that perhaps, like I said, other people aren't looking for. So when I talk about things that people aren't looking for, hidden upside, I'm talking about a couple different possibilities. I'm talking about an elite matchup, a team that strikes out a lot. I'm talking about an elite ground ball pitcher, a pitcher who is capable of getting deep into a game, deeper than a normal pitcher because of his ability to limit runs, his ability to acquire ground balls and stay in the game longer. Which can add up to strikeouts, which can add up just to extra innings pitched. So you may be able to find an inexpensive pitcher who's capable of pitching really, really deep into game because of a ground ball rate. I'm also looking for a swinging strike rate. Swinging strikes usually can equate to strikeouts, and based on recent matchups and things of that nature, a pitcher may be capable of getting more strikeouts than his K rate represents if we look at its swinging strike rate and determine that he is in fact getting hitters to miss the ball. And I'm also looking for recent trends. I'm looking for pitchers who in their recent matchups have been really, really very solid. So let's go one by one and let's figure out how we can determine where elite matchups lie, where we can figure out if a pitcher has a ground ball rate that's excellent, swinging strike rate, recent trends, all that kind of stuff. And we'll figure out what pitchers on this slate actually are capable of giving us a lot of GPP upside. So first thing I want to do is figure out matchups. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at the right-handed pitching splits, and we know we're on our splits leaderboard sorted by team and advanced data. I'm going to look at the strikeout rate versus right-handed pitching. I'm going to sort here. So we know that anyone who's above 22, 23%, that's an excellent matchup. But when we look at this list, we want to be careful because there's some offenses here that swing and swing hard and miss a lot, but they're actually kind of scary offenses and they can really hit a pitcher. Okay. And I'm looking at maybe a team like Oakland, Milwaukee, or Tampa Bay. We know that those guys can hit home runs. And in fact, their ISO numbers near and around 200 indicate that they can. Texas as well. They can hit home runs. What I'm looking for is not only the strikeout rate, but I'm looking for that strikeout rate to align with a pretty weak offense. So I see San Diego, I see Philadelphia. All right. Those are two matchups that I would definitely consider against right-handers. All right. So we know that San Diego is facing Johnny Cueto. That's a right-hander. I've put Johnny Cueto in consideration, but I also know that Johnny Cueto, just so you guys know, his recent trends have been pretty poor. He hasn't really gotten any strikeouts. He's really not looking like the Johnny Cueto of old. The wheels are starting to fall off. But Philadelphia will be facing Zack Davies. Zack Davies, he's got nice ground ball stuff, but the problem with Zack Davies is really that Zack Davies doesn't strike anybody out. The 14% strikeout rate really doesn't do it for me. I'm not going to spend money on a pitcher with a 14% strikeout rate and a 7% walk rate. It's just not worth it. There's no upside in that. I'd rather pay for a more high-quality pitcher. So in that respect, I'm probably not going to be able to roster either one of those elite matchups. Well, let's look at left-handed pitching. We're going to sort by left-handers. Texas, Tampa Bay, San Diego, no surprise. You see a lot of the same names. These guys swing, they swing hard. Arizona is another name up there. So we know San Diego isn't facing a lefty. We know Tampa Bay can be a bit of a threat as far as offense. Their ISO goes down, but they're not facing a lefty either. Texas, I believe they haven't gotten an announced pitcher in the Rangers game, if I'm correct. Where are the Rangers? Yeah, the Rangers have not announced. The Royals have not announced a pitcher. If we get a lefty in that situation, maybe we consider going up against the Rangers for the Royals here with the Royals pitcher, maybe Jason Vargas or something. But we don't know if that's going to be the case. Arizona, they won't be getting a left-hander. They're getting R.A. Dickey. Oakland, they won't be getting a left-hander. They are getting Carlos Carrasco. So we keep that in mind, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's going to be any elite matchups for left-handers unless we circle back to some of the other possibilities, unless we circle back to this Texas game left-hand splits. Circle back to this Texas game against, possibly against Jason Vargas, which is something that we'll consider. I'm also going to look at batted ball data. So I've determined maybe there's not any elite matchups on the slate. Batted ball data, I'm going to go ahead over to batted ball data, and I'm going to try to figure out if there's a guy who has an excellent ground ball to fly ball ratio, who's in a good matchup, who has quality stuff, that might be able to get me a little bit more upside. Clayton Richard, he's going up against San Francisco. That's interesting. A big ballpark. He's not a great pitcher. He has, but he has an excellent ground ball rate. I can investigate him, but he's got a pretty poor home run to fly ball rate. Mike Montgomery, Sonny Gray, that's interesting. Okay, now Mike Montgomery, also not a great pitcher. And Mike Montgomery of the Cubs going in up against the Orioles. Against left-handed pitching, the Orioles do strike out a little bit. Okay, 25%. That's definitely interesting. But do I trust Mike Montgomery to win me a tournament? I don't know that I do. I'll keep him in consideration. Sonny Gray is a name that I may want to look into. But Sonny Gray, if we look at it, he's going up against the Indians. And the Indians facing right-handed pitching, they are not striking out a lot, 19% rate, with a well above average offense at 106 WRC plus. I can't pitch Sonny Gray in this situation. It's just too risky. I can't do that. I don't want him to get blown up. So I haven't learned anything necessarily interesting about pitchers via ground ball data. What I'm going to look at now is I'm going to go ahead over to swinging strike rate. I'm going to try to determine if there's anybody who stands out there. So I go to plate discipline. I sort by swinging strike rate. And I look at my outliers. No surprise, it's DeGrom, it's Paxton, it's Carrasco. Those three pitchers are absolutely excellent options, even for tournaments. I love them. They are clearly the best pitchers on the slate based on swinging strike rate and the other numbers that align. But we aren't looking for that. We're looking for guys that people aren't paying attention to. So I see Dan Straley and Jacob Faria. We already talked about Sonny Gray. Unfortunately, it's just not a perfect situation. Straley and Faria. So let's consider their matchups first. Okay. Straley in the Marlins, he's got the Dodgers at home. I don't want the Dodgers. This is one of the hottest offenses in baseball against right-handed pitching. And let me just confirm that against right-handed pitching here. Dodgers only striking out 23% of the time. That's not bad, but a 107 WRC plus with a 184 ISO. Straley could get blown up by the Dodgers. I'm not that interested in that. He's got to face all those power-hitting lefties. So I'm going to go back to Jake Faria. Well, Faria, who do you have? Faria has the Angels. Interesting. He's on the road in LA. We know that's a big ballpark. I can go to Faria, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a deep dive on Faria. Okay. What I'm looking for when I look for Faria in this swinging strike rate is I'm looking for the matchup to check out. First of all, I'm looking for the matchup for to check out, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check his splits. I know he's a right-handed pitcher, so I'm going to find, oh, my wife's asking me about a Prime Day sale. I'm going to figure out where the Angels are. 91 WRC plus, well below average there. 20% strikeout rate, okay? That's pretty good. I'm good with that. This is an offense that isn't that threatening. They have a 150 ISO. They're not really a home run team. They're not doing that much against right-handed pitching. But I'm going to double check that to make sure that recently they're struggling as much as they have on the season. So I'm going to check the last 30 days. I'm going to update it. Okay. And I'm going to look to see, well, they're a little bit better in the last 30 days. They are not quite as bad, but they are striking out a little bit more. Okay. So they're 16th in the league. They're not elite, but they're not terrible. They're not the worst team in baseball, like the Rockies. So this is continues to be an intriguing spot for Faria. What I'm going to look at here now is I'm going to look at Faria's splits to make sure that he actually is capable of getting me a high quality performance. I look at his numbers here. Everything lines up. I see he has an excellent walk rate. It's 5.9%. That's intriguing. I see his ground ball rate isn't that high. But the nice thing is he's been limiting home runs at 7.7%, and he's been limiting hard contact at 29%. That's excellent. So I'll check out his splits to make sure he's running clean to righties and lefties. We don't have any problems there. I'll go down to advanced data here. Check his xFIP. He's struggling with lefties a little bit. That's true. But there's not a ton of lefties in the Angels lineup. We know that. Righties, he seems to be doing really, really well. 27% strikeout rate is elite. Only a 3% walk rate. So he's got complete control over righties in this situation. Really like to see that. That's great because the Angels, we know, have a lot of righties. Away, look at his K numbers. They go way up when he's on the road, which is very interesting. Now, that could be an outlier performance. It could be a small sample size, whatever the case may be. But we still like to see that it's a good trend. It's better than the opposite, right? So then we're going to look at his game logs to make sure his recent performances have been as good as we think, okay? And we look at the most recent 3 games. He had 2 games against Baltimore and 1 game against Boston, all divisional opponents, so not bad. The first thing I look at is 6 innings pitched, 6.2, 6 innings pitched. That's great news. It means he had the possibility to get himself a quality start. Did he get the quality start? 3 runs, 1 run. Yes, he did. So he got 3 quality starts in a row. That's great. How did he do in the strikeout department? Go to over here to SO, strikeouts. Well, Boston, they didn't swing a lot. We know Boston doesn't swing a lot, so maybe we can say that's not great, but Boston is a team that doesn't strike out a ton. The Angels aren't either, but they're not as good as an offense as Boston. Baltimore, they were swinging quite a bit. They're a team that strikes out against right-handed pitching. They swing a bit more against right-handed pitching. Let's see how they compare to the Angels in that number and strikeout rate. Baltimore striking out at a 22% rate. The Angels a 21.8% rate. So we see that they're actually kind of in the same neighborhood. So perhaps we can expect for Faria to be a little bit higher than a 2 strikeout night, maybe closer to this 6 strikeout number with a quality start. So that's good. Everything for Faria is checking out in this situation. We see that his recent trends have been excellent. We see that his splits are good. We see that on the season, he has some excellent numbers as far as strikeout rate, swinging strike rate. And we like the matchup with the Angels as well as the ballpark. So Faria is certainly in contention for some of my tournament lineups. So guys, one of the things that you're going to see in a video later on is how I like to construct multiple tournament lineups. So for recreational players, you guys can check out a video that I'm going to do as a follow-up here in creating a player pool and then creating numerous lineups for recreational players in MLB DFS. All right, guys, good stuff. Thanks for checking out this video. Check out more. I'm going to go ahead into some more advanced research on hitters in my next video. Thanks for checking it out.